Hello and welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way for you to exit highly appreciated businesses, real estate, cryptocurrency, so you can create and preserve more wealth. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swarts, and each episode I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial, wealth, crypto, and leadership minds in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration, so together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. Hey, I'm excited about our next guest. He's out of the great state of Alabama. He's actually a Deferred Sales Trust client. He is a multifamily developer. He is a business owner, an entrepreneur, and so many other things. And I just had the good fortune of being able to have Mr. Shea Pope as a client the last about year and a half now. We're going to dive into what it was like for him to exit a business tax deferred using a deferred sales trust, as well as dive into his story of building a business, exiting a business, and starting a new one with building multifamily properties. Please welcome to the show with me, Shea Pope. Hey, Shea, how you doing?
Brett, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. It has been a long time coming. Look forward to our conversation.
Absolutely. And for our listeners who are getting to know you for the first time, would you give them a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yeah, story is became a serial entrepreneur without knowing that I was an entrepreneur. Got hired out of college with about a year and a half left in school, dropped out and went in full time into a business called Logo Brands. Logo Brands was out of Memphis originally and is today the largest tailgating company in the United States. They take licenses from sports leagues around the world, and they put that on tailgating goods and then distribute those into retail chains and bookstores across the country. So leaving school with about a year and a half left and going into that business, I learned a lot about entrepreneurship and had two good friends in the business, eventually became an owner in that business in 2006. And we had just a crazy trajectory from a business that started out of a garage in Memphis back in early 2000s to become a leader in the space. So I was the COO there for 15 years, and just wholesale distribution, was over manufacturing in China, and left that business to pursue other ventures. In 2018 and 19, I started two businesses. I saw the space of commercial security becoming a bigger deal, and it was some of the unrest that we've seen, especially the last couple of years. So felt like getting into the security space was a neat business to start. And then also had always wanted to go into ground up construction and real estate. Just a huge passion. And in 18 and 19 started those two businesses. In 2020 exited out of Logo Brands, formerly as an owner, and there was another real estate company that was associated with that as well, where one of the main assets was. And so today, my role is I've got two businesses. One I'm 100% owner of, Driven Security out of Alabama. But then I'm in ownership with a general partner out of Nashville, Adam Birdwell, who is our GC, and we're building multifamily together and doing deals.
Absolutely amazing. I love it so much. I love the entrepreneur spirit. I love the business success, and I love the chasing after your next thing, which is multifamily real estate as well as securities business. Very, very cool. Before we dive into the topic, which is exiting a business tax deferred using a deferred sales trust and everything that the Graceway Group is doing with multifamily investments, I do want to take one other step back and help our listeners get to know you a little bit better. I want you to go back perhaps to your high school days or early college days. I believe we've all been given certain gifts in this life, Shea, and these gifts have been given to us to be a blessing and help to others. Some people call them strengths. Some people call them superpowers. I'm curious, what are those one or two gifts that you believe you were given, and how does that help, how you help and bless people today?
Yeah, I'm a man of faith. I got saved by God's grace in 2003. And I think I've been given primarily the gift of persistence. I will fight when I just don't have any energy left to fight. And through the good times and bad times, especially when we're talking about, putting real estate deals together, or we're starting businesses, or we're growing up and getting through college and getting into life and marriage and kids. I'm married, got 4 kids, been married for 15 years. And for me, the one thing I think about with my life is just persistence. That it might not always go the way that I want it to go, but as long as I'm persistent and I never quit and I've given it everything that I can, usually the results, and I know it's cliche, but usually things are going to work out the way that they're supposed to, and you can at least live with the results. So it served me well in my life, and trying to pass it along to my kids, that's a big thing for me.
That's awesome. Persistence is fantastic, and I can attest to that. And you were persistent with the due diligence process, right? Learning about the deferred sales trust. So let's pivot to that a little bit here, and maybe tell a little bit about wanting to exit, right, your logo brand's business, but having some capital gains tax, right, and looking at, oh my gosh, like how do I take what I would have paid in tax, and how do I help that to create this next business venture? So what was the maybe the biggest thing that you had to overcome when it came to sale, multi-million dollar sale, right, of a part of your interest in the business, deferring a big part of tax, and what was the biggest thing to overcome for the deferred sales trust?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to overcome with the trust was just to understand it. Truthfully, before I learned about it, there were 2 entities that we were selling out of. One had a real estate component, one didn't. And so when you're thinking about the future and, you've been in this business a long time, you want to get it right. And I remember I was down in Mobile, Alabama, and I was driving down the road on a sales trip, and I was listening to the Best Real Estate podcast, and you were a guest on Joe Fairless' show. And you were great on the podcast and very likable, trustworthy. I'm like, hey, this guy sounds legit. I like this. I specifically resonated with the IRS piece as far as it had been defended 14, 15 times, the structure of the DST. So I have a dear friend that in Tennessee that I trust, and he was selling out of some businesses too. And I told him about this. I was like, hey, listen to this podcast. He called me and he's like, man, let me dig into this. I was like, you are just the guy. Because when it comes to digging into things, he's so much, he's just gifted in that way. So, he did his research for a couple months. Then I did my research. We circled back up and he's like, man, I'm all in on this. And so, for me with my wife, Danielle, it really became, obviously we wanted to do a lot of reference checks with people that had kind of lived and breathed it, Brett. But, just for me, it was really simple. I got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxes here. I've got to pay them at some point, but why not defer them? And then that gives us the freedom and the time, because honestly, I had not done a ton of 1031s at this point to kind of go back a couple years. Right. But as I'm learning and evaluating, the DST just initially in doing my research, I'm like, man, this 1031 stuff sounds, very straightforward, but I'm an entrepreneur that doesn't like to be boxed in. And I imagine there's a lot of people like me, right, that want the freedom to not have to say, hey, I've got to do this with my money right now. And so that was kind of the biggest thing of the DST that resonated with me. It's like, hey, I can take the time that I need to do strategically, with a trustee, right? Once I signed up and understood how that worked as well, can make recommendations and have a lot more freedom that way for my family.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, and that's it's nice to have that third party validation for people like and trust. They can look at it from a separate set of eyes. Because I always say for folks that are approaching this for the first time, like it's a big deal to entrust something that perhaps you've never heard about before or just learning about, right, from a podcast. And perhaps the biggest exit you've had in it's your financial legacy and emotionally, when we're exiting highly appreciated assets, whether it be cryptocurrency, businesses, real estate, all the things that are associated with that, and then you're dealing with tax, it's almost like it's wise not to represent yourself if you're buying a house, because the emotional aspect of it can fog the logical part. And so I think that's wise that you sought that outside aspect of somebody whose skin wasn't in the game for your business sales. So just talk about that emotional part of exiting a big business, 15 years that you've been in this, and all of a sudden someone's telling you on a podcast that Joe Fairless, is interviewing me, that you could do this thing. Like what was going through your mind? How did that feel, and what helped you to overcome that hesitancy?
Yeah, I think the older I get, the more I realize that I can't do everything. And I think when I was a little bit younger, and I can even default to this still, um, man, I need to do everything. And when it came to getting out of these businesses, these are men that I consider friends. These are in some one relationship family, and was a lot of family relationships over the 15 years I was there. Um, and then in that dynamic, there's emotion on my side all around, right, at times, and especially when you're trying to figure out what do you want to get for these assets, what's market value, et cetera. So um, making sure that the stewardship side of it for my wife and I, that we weren't making a mistake in agreeing to value with my partners, and then taking that money into a vehicle that wasn't vetted out. I guess the simplest way for me is, I'd be lying to you, Brett, if I said I had like a concrete plan, other than how can I protect the taxes of this, to pay them at a later date. And I would tell you now, as I evaluate businesses to buy and sell, it's amazing the freedom that I have with the DST, and I'm very strategic with my planning of recommending to you, hey, let's look at this, that, et cetera. But truthfully, at the time, it was simple. It's just kind of like, hey, I need this guy, dear friend of mine, Ike Wingate, out of Arkansas now. He's moved, to let's vet this DST. And then once you and I talk for the first time, right, I think one of the things that are easily, I'm a Southerner at heart, right, lifelong Southerner. So for me, I got to talk to folks. I gotta kind of go straight to the horse's mouth, right? So um, you opened up your Rolodex of clients. And for me and my wife to be able to call, 20, 30 people, even after talking to Ike and him doing the same, I realized, like, not everybody that's done this had a perfect plan that was executed, right? They all were just trying to do what they felt like they were being led to do, um, in their family, right? What's best for the future, but give them some freedom to kind of make decisions a little while longer. So we talked to these families and former business owners and people that had done it, and we're like, man, this is what we need to do. We had a lot of peace. Um, and I think too, it was nice that the way that we structured those two buyouts, Brett, I think you and your team, um, us assigning those interests, right, in the way that the DST it works, it was nice because it gave us a lot of freedom, to not to have another layer of involvement removed, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I wish it was more complex than that. But I look back and I'm, it really worked out exactly the way that it was supposed to, and very thankful.
Excellent, excellent. And so you talked about what went right and what's gone well. What's been maybe the thing that perhaps you wish would be a little bit different, or something that surprised you, or anything that you would say like, I wish that would have been better? And this would be good feedback for me, but also just transparency. Anything that you're like, I wish I would have known that, or I wish I would have had more time to digest what was being said, because sometimes these deals are happening very quickly, right? And it's like we throw a lot
Yeah.
at you, right? So anything
Yep.
there you'd say, I wish, I wish I would have at least known that, so it's clear in my mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think time is probably the biggest thing. But Brad, I think the more you get to know me, I mean, that deal came together quick. Um, and again, I appreciate it because one of my biggest weaknesses, my wife would tell you, is patience. And I think we came to a number maybe at the end of March, and we were closed May 8th. So I mean, that's kudos to my former business partners, who handled that great. Kudos to you. Kudos to everybody involved. Uh, I think the thing that probably could have gone better is I could have asked better questions. There's some things with, specifically, Brett, around what we've learned coming into all these deals with the DST into some of the Graceway investments, Peacher's Place, and soon to be some other things. Um, it's like you said at the very beginning, before we assigned everything from those two entities at Logo and Macaulay, it's going to be like riding a bike. understanding how the DST works, how the ownership works, how you can defer the taxes and assign interest. And, those are things that until you just go through a couple deals, you just don't know. So, I felt like I asked all the questions, but the light bulb went off just like it does for me and everything else. I'm a visual guy. Like I got to go through it. So I don't know if it's necessarily anything, maybe something a little bit on the, some of the buy up stuff, protecting the upside on some of these investments using the DST. But it's been great. I mean, what we've done with Graceway Group and the freedom that I have, and even doing these last, couple things with you and Jake's just been fantastic.
Fantastic. And let's dive right into that, right? Because one of the best things, the reason I started the company was because in 2008, the market fell apart. And we literally saw people who had overpaid for 1031 exchange properties were in deals they didn't want to be in because they were trying to defer the tax. And we saw friends, family, clients lose half. Some lost everything in Sacramento, California, because the main thing we could find was the 1031 was the culprit here, right? And so the ability to have that flexibility with the timing of the dollars, the flexibility with diversification, the flexibility with liquidity, and to go back into real estate deals, all tax deferred, right? And in your scenario, literally ground up development. And as a reminder for listeners, like Shay was selling a business, it's not even 1031 eligible, right? So it's only eligible for maybe a charitable remainder trust, right? An opportunity zone. But just talk about the aspect of what you wanted to do and what you're doing now. And we're going to highlight that. And by the way, you can go to gracewaygroup.com on the 72 units that you're building in Clarksville, Tennessee, ground up development, and how the Deferred Sales Trust has been able to fund a part of that project.
Yeah, fantastic. What we've been able to do with that. And, I guess it'll be not so secret anymore after this, but that's a good thing because I think there's a lot of people like me, whether they're doing ground up development, whether they're passively investing, whether they're, looking to do a blend of both. It's pretty unique. So we deferred the taxes from selling these two assets. And we had already started kind of a holding company in Brentwood, Tennessee, and started a subsidiary in Clarksville. And the development's called Peacher's Place, 72 townhomes. And so many, many millions of ground up construction. And we did that in a couple phases. Just to be conservative with material prices, et cetera. But I was able to bring the trust that I'm in, that Brett oversees, into that development as a minority position holder. And then, one of the things that was near and dear to me that I think gets lost when I hear real estate podcasts out there from not people that are using DST structures, but just in general, is like, I'm a practical guy, making sure that the trust is not a guarantor, right? And making sure that there was flexibility from an equity position to allow the trust to have the equity that it needs to be commercially reasonable, but also not put the trust at risk. Because, the Graceway Group, me and my partner, we're going to be 80% owners still, and then the trust. But that makes it to where, the DST, Brett could loan money to the development along with us personally bringing capital if we desired. And then that business pays Brett back a return that was agreed upon contractually. So, I mean, the nice thing for me is Brett's been just such a gift as far as like, hey, very flexible of like, hey, here's some stock market opportunities. Here's some passive opportunities with a lot of different people across the country that are in Brett's network. But, look, I mean, I believe in my business partner, Adam, and obviously I believe in myself. So if Brett believes in me to invest into a development that we're doing in Clarksville, right? And then he can get a return, but then I have direct control over that on the ground from a construction and financial management standpoint with my partner. Like, that's a win-win. And so, it's an active investment that you're directly involved with. And so when we did that, we have sold out of the first phase. We're almost sold out of the second phase, and then there'll be a third phase that's going to come online this summer. And it's just been fantastic. We actually, Brett, as you know, we have assigned the value of all that through all three phases into the DST that I have. And what's beautiful about that is my 40% of my ownership in that LLC that was outside of the trust, I deferred and assigned that to the trust. And then the 20% that the trust captured, I was able to buy an option on that. And, the great thing about the option is, there's a commercial transaction of which I paid to be able to capture the upside. But that allows the trust to still make a percentage on the end. But so yeah, I mean, for me to get a large piece of that transaction overall, with some money put in from the trust, but earn a pref return the entire time, defer the taxes, and then the next two developments do the same thing. That's a win. And I mean, I think from a business standpoint, Brett, what I would say is, I have not seen it much, because at least Adam and I's strategy, right, is to use that is equity for our business to grow it with, right, competitively. And it's a way to build a war chest, but you've also got passive income. So now, what he and I are doing is we've got these deals where our percentages of ownership, we're going to have passive money at the end of this coming back to Graceway that'll be distributed out monthly. But all that equity from the sale is in two separate trusts. And it's powerful because you've got a note of that money that's due to you, but you're putting it to work elsewhere. So if we want to do other deals, et cetera, we can. And, obviously, again, I didn't know all this when I started. I had a decent idea, but I mean, under the hood, we're doing a lot of stuff and excited about it.
Fantastic, Shay. Thanks so much for sharing that. For those who want to learn more, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. It's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. I so appreciate you sharing those details, right? Because it does help those who are learning about this for the first time to get as comfortable as they can, right? And there's this thing about the Deferred Sales Trust. Part of why I love it because it's such a dynamic, challenging, like building a high level of trust and typically sometimes a short period of time with a very high stakes deal, and then trying to develop these client relationships. And you're in Tennessee, in Alabama, and I'm in California, thinking about moving, by the way, to Florida and or towards Tennessee,
yeah.
right? I know you're twisting my arm on that one a little bit, but it's really unique. It's really an honor for me to be able to serve and be a part of your exits, right? And then strategizing and helping you buy and find more deals or negotiate deals. And so talk about for somebody who's watching this, right? Why capital gains tax solutions? Why would they want to work with me, right? What anything about that could help them get encouraged? Why not just do a 1031 exchange, right? In other words, like of all the alternatives that you looked at, what is it about the deferred sales trust that would help somebody to say, yes, I want to make this decision? Yeah. And yes, it is like riding a bike, right? Because we literally could try to take the 10,000 hours that I've been studying and doing deals since 2009 and the tax attorney touche and this, 30 to 60, let's call it maybe 90 days that you have as much as possible. But at the end of the day, like, it's an act of trust and faith that what it is A, it's legal, and then B, the people are legit and are credible and are going to protect everything. So walk us through, help that person who's on the sidelines or just like not sure, their CPA saying, oh, I wouldn't do it, or I'm not sure, and it just seems, like more people would be doing it. Help us through that.
Yeah, I think I resonate with a couple different things that were important to me that I'm sure for a lot of your listeners would be valuable. I think the first thing I would say, and I left this out at the beginning, but it's important. I had an attorney and I had my CPA going back almost 20 years. Look at this. And I will be honest with you, I got a mixed bag on the first conversations about it. But after they had their consultation with the DST's attorney and tax professionals, everybody was on the same page. And, that CPA group out of Nashville is one of the biggest in the Southeast, phenomenal people. And I'll tell you, they've, I don't want to speak for them, but they've been very encouraged, even a year or two later, at the way the installment sales stuff has been reported. and everything's checked the box on their side. So, I think that's important for listeners to hear is like, bring your people. If you're talking to Brett and you're thinking about this versus a 1031, get your people in a room or on the phone, and Brett's going to give you the freedom to vet it out the best you want. And I think that's all you can ask for. I think another thing that I would bring up that was important for me is, it's a principle that I don't always do 100% on a fill all the time, but like the do unto others as you would want done to you, out of Matthew. And my big thing on the reference calls was, when has Brett let you down? But when has Brett done what he says he was going to do? Done what he said he was going to do. And, the examples were just like, okay, this is a guy I can trust. This is a guy of character. And then just meeting you, Brett, seeing your wife and kids, just getting to know your story, your background a lot more. I think the bottom line for most people, if they're like me, is kind of the biggest thing when you think about trust is like, you've got to assign that to somebody else. You have to give up control. And I kind of go back to what I said at the beginning. I can't control everything. So if I want to maximize my return on investment the next 20 years of my life and really try to build businesses to be, successful, I got to have the time to do that. I got to have the flexibility. I got to have the freedom, and I don't have to do everything. So you would think like, man, I've sold these 2 businesses. You're just gonna, give away full flexibility of controlling that day to day. Well, it's like, yeah, I will, because, I think the DST and kind of what you specifically have brought to it, it allows me, I still have contracts in place. There's still, a lot of recourse involved to make sure that things don't go south, but you do have to trust people in life. And, I hear these horror stories, especially lately. I mean, wherever people think the market is, right? If we're midway through, top, bottom, Tennessee and Alabama real estate's on fire. And what I hear a lot from 1031 purchasers who sold assets, especially from out of state, coming into Tennessee and Alabama. It's like, man, I've got all this money, but I cannot believe what things cost here. And so, doing a DST, it gives you time where you don't feel the pressure of, I've got to find something in 45 days and then close in 6 months. And so, yeah, those are the 2 or 3 things, Brett, I would say that were important to me. It's like, flexibility, let my own team see it. And then just kind of a personal character assessment,
Awesome. That's great, Shay. And I also want to remind everybody that Shay's talking about the structure and the day-to-day. But Shay, it'd be good for everyone to hear it. Like, do the funds ever move without your approval, or investments ever made without your approval? What's the answer to that, Shay?
Yeah, well, the answer is no. But kind of back practically, right? I mean, that was something I was concerned about because, we've all had those things in businesses, right? Where it's like, I've signed this, but does it work that way? And so that was one of the early things is, am I going to have visibility to all these investments? Which to me, that's one of the best things, like the way that you report the data to me, the way I can see all the documents in one file, phenomenal. All right. And then the other thing was important, what you just said, if the money's moving, what's happening there. So, I mean, for me to be able to put Danielle on this, right? And there to be both of us is a married couple, like have a say so as far as like final authorization. It's great. And you do put it where you want it to be, but we have to see it and bless it. So I couldn't concur more.
Fantastic. Thanks, Shay, for sharing that testimonial and the feedback. And that means the world to us. And hopefully listeners are getting some more confidence. And they go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com if you want to schedule one-on-one time with me to assess if it could be a good fit for you. You can also join our mastermind. It happens every Friday by going to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can join us. We have clients on there. In fact, Shay, I'm going to encourage you to join this next mastermind to also share. And by the way, Shay and I are going to be doing a breakout session at the Best Ever Conference that's coming up here in Colorado. It's Joe Fairless and his team. I have the honor of speaking on stage, and then of which I'll be giving a shout out for Shay as for a Graceway Group as well. The next day on Friday, the 25th, we're going to do a breakout session where I'm going to be on a panel with Shay and a couple others going through, and I call it geeking out on tax deferral, right? On the Deferred Sales Trust, and basically an open forum. Anyone's invited. They can see us live and in person. And so if you want to learn more about that, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com, where we have a discount code of 15% off of that ticket. But that being said, Shay, I want to switch over to the Graceway Group and what you're doing over there, kind of the vision for that and the potential opportunity for those who are interested, right? Being that you are, an Alabama, Tennessee, native expert in areas and building and development. And I'm excited to bring you up folks that are open to that, because let's face it, in California and these other states, it's hard to make sense of any deals. But the fact that you are building and new construction and selling for great prices, just walk through a little bit about Graceway's vision and the opportunity for people who might be interested.
Yeah, I mean, the vision of Graceway, it's exciting. From the beginning, we started that place in a Cracker Barrel in Tennessee, Brett, over some good old eggs and bacon and all that stuff. And Adam is a guy that I've known for many years, and he was transitioning away from a construction company, and the timing was perfect for us to kind of jump in both feet. And so Graceway Group is our tagline and mission statement is partnering for the future. What does that mean? We each have 4 kids. He's got 4 boys. I've got a girl and 3 boys. And so what are we leaving them? What's our legacy to them? Are we just out, syndicating deals, building deals, selling deals, leasing deals? Or are we thinking about our kids and leaving them something that they can take over someday? And we just aligned from a vision standpoint of like, man, we both love real estate and construction, but partnering for the future means a lot for our families, right? But then also, if people are ever coming to us with their money, I go back to what I said from Matthew about doing to others you want done unto you. If you're partnering for the future and you've got an 18 to 24 month window to execute on something and to sell it or lease it up, but to do it right, you want people to trust you, and you want to bring them in as a partner. So, I mean, we talked about those 2 threads with family and syndicating money someday. And we're just like, man, that is what kind of represents it, partnering for the future. And so from there, we really took our time, because, even though he's got a construction background, even though I've got a business background in 3 or 4 different businesses, real estate and construction together, ground up development, we wanted to make sure when we jumped into this thing that we really had our ducks in a row, and that triple check the cost, triple check the market. So we looked at a lot of markets. I mean, Tennessee, no income tax. We started this business 2 months before COVID hit the U.S. in February of 2020. So here we are thinking, oh man, we're going to knock this out of the park, and then COVID hits. But the blessing of COVID is there's a fine line in everything. I mean, it gave us additional months to like drive these communities with not a lot of people out and about. And we looked at markets all around Nashville. We love Tennessee. We're looking at some other markets outside of Tennessee. We have not yet done anything in Huntsville, although Huntsville's #1 emerging market in the country in my book. A lot of the people I follow are investing here, and we are a licensed GC in Alabama. So if there are opportunities that people know of, or landowners, investors want to contact us, very open to that. But yeah, Tennessee, we've got 1 deal underway. We are selling 72 townhomes. We've got about 32 of those sold, and then the other 40 are going to be coming online soon. Those are $245 a door, 1,400 square feet, 3 bedroom, 3 bath is the mix there. And so yeah, Adam's on the ground up there in Clarksville. And we're building these for sale. And I think to kind of give you some context on that, Brett, it's important at the onset of this first deal, right? We wanted to kind of stabilize the company, make sure beyond the DST that I've got personally, that the company is flush with cash and ready to go into other deals. And so some of the other deals that we're looking at are in and around Nashville. We have I think a really good deal for us right now is we've got multiple landowners that are coming to us under 100 acres that are wanting us to do single family for rent. Some are wanting to do a townhome, high-end residential mix with like 1 acre lots, about 4,000 square feet. But we're open to the deals that make sense. we're not out chasing a bunch of deals. We think that, especially going to this show this month, there's some things that we want to learn on the syndication front. We want to, button up. But yeah, I mean, I think what makes us unique, to kind of round out my thoughts, is that, we're ground up, and, we're in the hottest market in the country. I mean, I lived in Nashville for 12 years, Tennessee for 27, in Memphis, and it just could not be a better market with the amount of companies and businesses that are moving in there. So it's an exciting time, and we hope to get you in Tennessee, by the way.
Yeah, me too. That'd be so amazing if we can make that happen. So thank you so much, Shay, for sharing that. By the way, you can learn more about that by going to thegracewaygroup.com. It's thegracewaygroup.com. That being said, we're running out of time. Shay, are you ready for the lightning round?
I'm ready.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you can go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget make sure to tell yourself to do?
Be patient.
Great. Number 2, what's the number one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
Think and Grow Rich.
Number 3, what's the number one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
Do unto others as you want done unto you.
Next one would be, what are you most curious about right now?
I am the most curious about sponsorship in deals, how that looks, what that represents in different asset classes, how to balance equity positions as a developer and show grace there, but be fierce when it counts to kind of make sure that your company's protected. So yeah, that's a big thing I'm researching right now.
Fantastic. And the last thing is this: after all your success in logo brands and a driven security business and Graceway Group, with the Deferred Sales Trust, your family, everything, right? How do you most stay centered in your values? What kind of habits are you practicing, right? And how do you stay encouraged to charge forward and reach for even higher heights?
Yeah, I think 2 things. I mean, I think for me, from a faith standpoint, that's important to me. Prayer. Which out of prayer, I've got a good circle of people around me that I'm really transparent with. I'm in a CEO group in Huntsville, through an organization called C12. It's a group of CEOs that have a Christian faith background that can speak into my life. My wife, my best friend, I tell her all the good, bad, the ugly, and she shoots me straight. We've got a good church, and then just a couple, dear friends. I mean, Brett, you're a guy that I consider to be a friend. And I think, while we don't go into deep personal stuff, right? Like from a business standpoint, you shoot me straight. And, I've got a couple friends that on all fronts do that with me. And, I think you got to have some type of way to privately speak your issues, right? Because we all have issues. So for me, prayer is number one. But then having a close group of people that you're like, hey, am I running after all this stuff for the wrong reason? Is it about me? Is it about something else? Or if you're struggling, which there's going to be people that listen to this that are like, man, this DST stuff sounds too good to be true. We all have a tendency to overthink it. Like for me, it's like, what is your personal group of people that you can trust that that it's more than one person? There's a plurality of people that can shoot you straight.
Amazing, Shay. I want to thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brett.
For being, being a friend now, being a client, giving me the privilege and honor to be able to serve you and your family. I want to encourage you to keep using the gifts of persistence to help those around you and your family and your business, and Adam and your partnerships, right, and everything with Graceway, to make a difference in this world and bless and be a blessing to others. And so thank you so much for being on the show. And I also want to thank our listeners for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions Podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy when exiting a highly appreciated business, cryptocurrency, real estate, stock, GP positions, carried interest, save a failed 1031 exchange. Using the Deferred Sales Trust to defer millions of dollars, $100,000 is the best way to create and preserve more wealth. Give yourself optimal timing to build projects, to do things that you didn't think was possible with your wealth on an exit, all tax deferred. That's why we're here, and that's what we want to inspire you with today. So I'm hoping you're inspired. I hope you're encouraged. By the way, I want to invite you to our free mastermind every single Friday by going to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We're talking cryptocurrency, the Deferred Sales Trust, and real estate is the main theme right now. But it's an open forum, open opportunity to ask questions, bring on your CPA, bring on your financial advisor, whomever, to learn about this so they can feel great about it. And also, if you're at the Best Ever Conference, please come up and meet me and Shay. We'd love to see you there. That's happening February 24th to the 26th. You can get your discount code by going to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. Please rate, review, subscribe. Please share this with somebody who can encourage today, and we'll talk to you again.